In order to have the permit, the right to construct, on average it takes us 7 years to have the right documents. After that, we can only start the construction. So all the industrial value chain behind that needs to follow, which means if we would be starting with a permit application today, it would take us another 10 years before we can really start having a first flow. That means 2036. I represent GIE, which is Gas Infrastructure Europe, and our members are regulated infrastructure operators in the gaseous sector. They are TSOs, so pipeline transport operators, they are import terminal operators, and they are storage operators. And today we secure gas deliveries to households, to energy, being electricity industry, but also to large industry off-takers. And tomorrow, we will be able to restructure that infrastructure in order to bring hydrogen to the same off-takers and potentially also CO2 in order to store all that CO2 that we have in the air and to have it safely stored underground offshore. So talking about all those three different gases, we believe that it is very important in the policy debate today to have a sector integration approach rather than a single sector approach, because that is the only way that we will be able to afford a competitive future for both our industry and our households. Our sector today is obviously looking into the elaboration and the development of a hydrogen infrastructure and potentially underneath the umbrella of the new to come regulation around CO2, also a CO2 infrastructure. And in order to be able to do that, obviously first we need to create plans of where it makes sense to have those pipelines, to have the storage sites, etc. But secondly, in order to start construction, we need first to get a permit. Indeed, in relation to permitting, we do have to realize first that the 2030 targets are around the corner. And just to give you an idea of the timeline, in order to have the permit, the right to construct, on average it takes us 7 years to have the right documents. And that is only the start of it, because after that we can only start the construction. That requires ordering long lead items, etc. So all the industrial value chain behind that needs to follow, which means if we would be starting with a permit application today, it would take us another 10 years before we can really start having a first flow. That means 2036. The timeline I just described is obviously in the ideal conditions. This could take even longer, but obviously as an industry, we subscribe to the targets that have been put forward, both for 2030 and later. But if we don't reach the 2030 milestone, we are going to be in jeopardy of reaching the other milestones that are following up on that. So this is really a call to policymakers to help us reaching the targets and reduce those permitting times. It is going to be one big hurdle that we can already take in the right direction. So today, this is a call for action. So when it comes to recommendations, first of all, of course, we want immediate action, but action has already been taken under the form of RED III, but also the Net Zero Act. There are quite a few elements in both those legislative texts that can be implemented today. So this is again a call for action, but then on the member state level to start implementing what the European Union level has already prepared. And then in the omnibus to also continue that simplification, but as a follow-up of the earlier work that has been done both in RED III and the NZIA. Finally, as part of those recommendations, we would really have a direct ask to have a level playing field between the electricity and gaseous infrastructure, because both are going to be needed equally in the decarbonization pathways as they are complementary to each other. And I would really like to center the debate again on sector integrative approach, because at the end of the day, we all will be faced with the geographical elements that we have in our surroundings, because this is what is going to define whether you have access to renewable electricity production modes, or whether you have access to an offshore storage for CO2, or whether you have access to gaseous production, be it biomethane or hydrogen. So that should be in the middle in order to create an affordable and competitive energy market for our users. So with GIE, we believe that it's very important to join this informal coalition on permitting because it is paramount that the different elements in the value chain get together, work out the different elements that are the pain points on the various pain points, but obviously there will be overlapping issues so that we can clarify them and bring them across in a more influential and more effective way rather than being fragmented in the debate with different voices, one crying louder than the other. But it is important to come together and create a constructive narrative here. Because at the end of the day, we all want to reach the 2050 targets, and it is only by doing this together that we will be really effective. So an important message that we would like to give as members of the Informal Coalition on Permitting is that we are not asking for a relaxation of the rules, but rather a rationalization of the rules, so that as an energy industry, we can comply with the demands in order to meet the environment targets by 2030, 2050 and beyond.